1982, a newsletter called Rock and Roll Confidential. And yeah, he wanted to use news items from my newsletter because we were writing about a lot of political stuff regarding music that nobody else was covering. The deal was that, you know, he would pay us $10 a month if he used stuff, which he always used, and he never paid. The Flint Voice wasn't the only place that ever ran syndicated material from Rock and Roll Confidential. It is the only one that ever burned us. And it is certainly the only one who didn't pay us and basically treated us like we were the ones who were being unfair about it. That was the thing that really frosted my ass.
In 1986, Michael leaves the Michigan Voice and moves to San Francisco to become editor of the left-wing magazine, Mother Jones.
I intend to, I think, get back to the old days of muckraking journalism here, to return Mother Jones to its hell-raising roots.
After only 5 months, he's fired. The people at Mother Jones want to forget the entire episode and all the bad publicity they got from dumping Michael. It's a particular sore spot in its history, the left eating its own. I was surprised that 20 years later, people were still this upset about Michael Moore.
People that I knew there, that I had hired and worked with for years, were telling me the guy was just impossible, and they were demoralized.
There was a meeting of the staff, and Deirdre English, whose place he was taking, was there, and he kind of basically trashed the magazine in no uncertain terms.
The whole Mother Jones episode in Michael Moore's career is quite an interesting one, and one that he has portrayed very successfully, that he was simply too honest and too real for the effete intellectual liberals at Mother Jones.
There's a big cultural chasm that has long been a part of left politics in America. This cultural clash became quickly intolerable, particularly to the management of Mother Jones. And it expressed itself in ways that did concern debates over editorial content.
After Michael is fired, he sues Mother Jones for $2 million and wages a national PR campaign against the magazine and the press.
On August 5th, I was ordered by Adam Hochschild, chairman of the board of the foundation that owns Mother Jones, to publish an article on Nicaragua that said, in essence, that the Sandinistas are a group of Leninists. I obviously didn't get along with the owner, Mr. Hochschild, because of our disagreement on this particular article on Nicaragua. It was an outrageous article that echoed many of the things that Ronald Reagan says about the Sandinistas.
There were leftists at the time who were appalled at the Reagan administration's policy toward Nicaragua, but who also had no illusions about the Sandinistas, who certainly were not perfect social democrats. Some people might say that you can disagree with Reagan and also disagree with the Sandinistas. I guess that was too complicated for him.
It had to be political, it had to be working class, it had to be about Nicaragua, it had to be about all these things. And of course, that's what gets buzz. And the political world wanted to see, you know, this terrible political sin that had been committed against Michael Moore, when in fact it was much more an accumulation of smaller things. There was a budget of millions of dollars, there was a very specific schedule, and Michael wasn't used to that, or maybe perhaps not ready for that.
For the first time in his life, Guy Saperstein, a well-known civil rights lawyer, crosses the aisle to defend Goliath, in this case, Mother Jones.
The picture emerged very consistently that Michael was very non-collaborative, very insecure, very suspicious. He wasn't doing a good job of explaining the many confrontations he had with employees. It was more important for him to be quick and witty than to be thoughtful.
Michael leaves San Francisco with a settlement of $58,000, only $8,000 more than he was offered initially. Jim Musselman is working for consumer advocate Ralph Nader when he gets the despondent call from his friend Michael.
I was in Washington, D.C., and Michael was very depressed because he had just been fired and he didn't know what he was going to do. That's when I basically talked to Ralph that night, and I said, Ralph, you've got to give Michael a job. He said, usually, you know, I don't hire too many people. And I said, Ralph, I vouch for him, hire him. And Ralph said to me, okay, I'll do it.
As it turned out, it was just the greatest thing on earth, you know, that they canned him, and, you know, he got a little money out of the deal because obviously paved the road for what became his stock in trade.
Me and you is illegally using using Tampa's money to bring Michael Moore here. It's wrong. It's unethical.
You mean like how many billions spent in Iraq for a war that had nothing to do with what's happening?
We're still following Michael on his slacker tour through Michigan, but he decides not to do a press conference at Central Michigan University, which means we won't be able to ask him any questions.
Yeah, I was working hard last night to put up signs for this protest tonight. I'm sorry, rally, pro-Bush rally, not a protest. And by 10 o'clock this morning, I heard that most of them were down.
I have to do a lot of on-campus stuff for class, and I came to this one because one of the categories for the things is engage in civic duty or something like that, and he's very contradictory and everything, and there's a lot of controversies for him and stuff. So.
Oh, what do you think of Michael Moore?
I really don't know much about him. I didn't know who he was until this year, so it's a learning experience for me.
Michael Moore, right here. Are you ready to vote? Let me see voter ID card. I'm playing. People.
I realize after following Michael to a few of his slacker speeches, I agree with one of his favorite mantras.
The question I have for our media is, where were you before the war? Why didn't you ask the hard questions? Why didn't you demand the evidence?
If you look at the coverage of the Iraq War, there is criticism, but look what it is. I mean, the criticism is it's not going well. I mean, if you read Pravda in the early 80s, when Russia was invading Afghanistan, it would have looked very much like the liberal press in the United States.
You should not be getting your news from a guy with a high school education in a Central Michigan ball cap. This is not how you should be hearing this. Where is our media? Where is our media? Do your job! Do your job! Come on!
On the other hand, his ramped-up stage style and yelling reminds me of an old-time preacher. His audiences holler amen to every sermon. He even uses a tactic he loves to criticize George Bush for: fear.
George W. Bush has run out of troops. There is no way he can continue even this war without bringing back the draft, and that's exactly what he's going to do if he gets another 4 years. You're going to be called up. You're going to be called up. You're going to have to go and fight George Bush's wars.
Michael Moore and the whole Bush machine are both master manipulators. They're both committed to a starkly ideological view of reality, and they're both very good at screening out anything that doesn't confirm that view.
Back in 1986, Michael helps filmmaker Kevin Rafferty with his film on white supremacists.
White power! So you're actually responsible for putting Michael Moore, the first one to put Michael Moore on film?
I think so.
You know, they don't even want to learn our language.
Michael is interviewing a beautiful blonde woman in an SS uniform.
Now, you don't look like a typical Nazi, you know, I mean, you know, the ones we're used to seeing in the movies and on TV. You know, I mean, you could be in a Coppertone commercial for...
I'm not just against Jewish people. It's also blacks.
And that was, I think, the first time Michael saw himself being funny on film, and I don't know, it could have had some influence on his future stuff.
In return for helping out on Blood in the Face, Rafferty shoots part of Michael's groundbreaking film about Flint and gives him some advice.
I told him, you know, look, you don't want to put yourself in your own movie, you know. If he'd have taken my advice, he'd be in an office like this now, still looking for $5,000 grants. I told him not to use narration. He does go around saying I saved him $40,000 because he didn't have to go to film school, so. He did put himself in his movies, and it's wonderful, the result. I mean, he's become a much-needed voice on the left. Whether or not you agree with every point he makes is another question.
Some shortcut.
The one undeniable thing about his movies is that they have been a huge success. He's a worldwide celebrity.
It's called Roger and Me. Roger is Roger Smith, chairman of General Motors. And Me is the filmmaker, Michael Moore, who spends much of the film trying to see Roger Smith.